Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the event Brazil-Canada Connection, Identifying Digital Solutions for the Oil and Gas Industry. At the end of the meeting, we have a Q&A section. Please use the Q&A button instead of the chat button. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. And let me introduce the participants of this webinar. It's a pleasure for me. A minute, please. Share my screen. Okay, here we are. This is Evelyn Calam, Consul General of Canada in Rio de Janeiro. Mr. Gustavo Robichet, Distance Learning Central Coordinator at PUC-Rio ECOA. The keynote speakers by Brazil, Mr. Nicolas Simon, Global Executive Director, Digital Transformation and Innovation at Petrobras, and Mr. Geoffrey Kent, Digital Advisor for Oil and Gas Industry and author of the book Bits, Bytes, and Barrels. And we have the people that support this meeting, this webinar: Nadine Lopes from Consulate, Sheila Dantas from Consulate, Juan Diaz from PUC, Carla Passinet from PUC, and myself, moderator Cavani. Let me please invite Mrs. Calam to make initial remarks by asking her, Brazil and Canada, Evelyn, are countries that maintain a good friendship for a long time, both with great potential to grow. And how could Brazil and Canada increase collaborative projects in the oil and gas sector? What's your vision for that?
So thank you, Professor Cavagna. So on behalf of the Government of Canada, I'd like to thank you and the ECOA Open Innovation Ecosystem at the PUC-Rio University, who's a partner in this initiative, and start by saying that it is a real pleasure to be here today to open this series of webinars on the digital transformation in the oil and gas sector. So I'm also grateful to that notes. Ms. Nicolas, whom I had the pleasure to work with in my past career. We're all thrilled to welcome you both to speak at this first webinar, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation. It will be a privilege to hear from our speakers on digital transformation in the oil and gas sector, particularly since the industry is facing such difficult times with oil prices down and an unmatched drop in demand caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, efficiency gains are a major priority for oil companies more than ever, and digital transformation can contribute to that. So I look forward to hearing from our keynote speakers on this topic. So to answer your question, Professor Cabana, it is clear to us that the key to success is through collaboration. For this to happen, we believe that Brazil and Canada need to deepen our knowledge of each other's market, vision, strengths, and needs. So this series of webinars is a tool that will allow this to happen. So as we are constrained by quarantines in both our countries, we can pursue our collaboration online. So Brazil and Canada are two global oil and gas powers with their own characteristics. Brazil is today the world's 7th largest oil producer, and according to analysts, is set to become one of the top 5 exporters, in addition to being number 2 in global production growth rate by 2030. So Canada is also a major producer, 5th largest oil producer, 4th largest natural gas producer, and it holds the world's 3rd largest proven reserves after Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. So we also know that digital transformation has become a priority for most oil and gas players, both in Brazil and in Canada. So the Canadian 4.0 industry counts on 4 technology clusters and 5 new innovation superclusters throughout the country. So the 4th industrial revolution is now fully underway, and Canada is part of the global competition with strong capacities in all technologies required, such as the industrial Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, big data analytics, augmented and virtual reality, cybersecurity, and advanced robotics. So Canada has a proven track record in innovation and the capacity to innovate further. So let me take this opportunity to introduce the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service, or as we call it, the TCS, which helps Canadian companies, investors, and the academia navigate international markets. So the TCS can also help Brazilian companies identify the best technological solutions and the right partners in different industries. So in Brazil, we have a network of 6 offices and sector specialists covering various areas, including oil and gas, that is covered by Najini Lopez from our consulate in Rio, and the ICT sector covered by Sheila Santos from our consulate in Sao Paulo. So whether you're a Canadian company looking to diversify in the Brazilian market, or a Brazilian company looking for Canadian innovative solutions, you can count on the TCS, and they can help to make introductions. So I would like to finish by saying that during these challenging and uncertain times, collaboration between Brazil and Canada is more important than ever. And our main goal here is to do this together with Brazilian oil and gas companies, startups, and academia, so as to deepen knowledge on both sides and ultimately contribute to the development of digital transformation in the oil and gas industry in both countries. So I'm sure that this seminar is an excellent example of how to bring Brazil and Canada together to discuss and address priority themes such as this one, and consequently foster the development of businesses, partnerships, and cooperation. So thank you very much, Dr. Cavagna.
Thank you, Mr. Clamp. You are totally right. So it's time to collaborate between countries, and countries so good, let's see, similarities in terms of oil potential and something like that. Okay. Thank you.
That's right. Thanks.
Mr. Robichaud, please, are you here? You know, academia is a key element in a plan to sustain long-term projects based on research and opportunities. In the case of Brazil and Canada, your vision, this partnership, how could both sides, universities, can support and spread knowledge in your vision?
That's a good question, Cavagna. First of all, on behalf of PUC-Rio, it's a pleasure to host this important online seminar, one of many others that may become in the near future. For sure, Canada is one of the most important partners of Brazil. For many years in PUC, we have had strong relationships with Canadian university, in particular with University of Waterloo. Answering your question, the relation between companies and universities is one of the most important key factors to promote collaboration, cooperation, and business. PUC-Rio aims to foster the collaboration on this prominent ecosystem. And the answer is ecosystems. I think that the university university plus companies plus different persons can make strong relationships and to support each other in a collaborative business model. And it's really, really, really good to start this initiative discussing digital transformation. Why not to start with this topic? I would like to welcome you all, Nicholas, Geoffrey, and Cavagna. You are really welcome to PUC-Rio. For Evelyn, it's really nice to make this opening session with you. Hope to, besides quarantine, we can arrange a meeting, a personal meeting to discuss how to foster this collaboration. And Cavagna, I don't know if I answered your question, but the key word is collaboration. Is a collaboration that has a perspective not only on short-term transactions, but observing medium-term, long-term initiatives. I think that we have so many things in common with Canada, and Canada is in my heart. So it's really, really important to be here with you and to hear from Nicholas and Geoffrey that are our keynote speakers. Thank you very much.
Professor Gustavo, you mean both sides collaboration? I mean, must be an equilibrium in this process.
Yeah, for sure. I think that you have to develop a strategy win-win. It's important for Canadian companies making business in Brazil, and it's important to Brazilian companies and Brazilian people to make business and to work together with Canadians. I think that we have several common interests, and so we need to keep the pace and to try to identify our priorities. That's the key word also. And a university can try to foster and to make besides academic connections, business connections too.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Gustavo. Mr. Simon from Petrobras, please. Petrobras is. He is not here yet. Can we put him on? Yeah, here. Yes. Petrobras is concentrated efforts on digital solutions. You are the head of this area in Petrobras, director of that. Is there a roadmap to achieve higher digital levels? Can you show us some of these important thoughts?
Well, first, thank you for the invitation. I think in this moment that I call the perfect storm because market is going down, brand is going down, and we have the pandemic. I think anyone from a risk management perspective could predict this kind of scenario that we are running. But I think in this collaborative work that, of course, right now we are focusing in this webinar with Canada and Brazil, I think it's a lot of to share in order to evolve in the market. What I will try to pass through here is my vision in how the world is going, or is the behavior of the world, and why digital transformation is so important. But first of all, digital transformation is not just IT. This is something that all in my speech I put in place, because all the time that the executive think in digital transformation, maybe they think that is an IT problem, and it's not. It's a cultural change in an organization that I will explain in these 10-12 minutes that I have. If Armando, if you can help me pass through the slides.
Sure.
If you can go to the next one.
Yeah. This one.
Yeah. In what world we are living? We are living in a world that we call VUCA. I think everybody know about that way of thinking. But today we are living in a world that is that have volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and is ambiguous. And for that world, we need what we call is the vaccine. Armando, if you can pass through to the end of the slide. That what we need to work in a world like this. We need velocity. This is very important. When we think in digital transformation, we cannot think in project of 3 years. Today, a project of 2 or 3 months is a project that we need to think about. Of course, with new methodologies, for example, using Agile. Remember that Agile is not velocity, because we have velocity and agility, but it's responsivities. Is the time to market that we put in place and the way that we adapt to the uncertainty, to the volatility of the market. Of course, we need to be creative. We need to innovate. We need to have network. That is what we are doing here. When we think in the partnership of Brazil and Canada and universities, we are creating a network of co-working in a way that we can experiment and accelerate this digital transformation. If you can pass through the next slide, you can go to the end to be faster. Thank you. When we think in a world of ambiguity, what we are thinking is that we have the traditional part and we have the digital part. It's not one fighting with the other. It's just how we put the traditional and the digital working together. Remember that I put some words here. Not every customer will be human. And if we know Alexa, for example, from Amazon or artificial intelligence, when we say to Alexa what we want water, we are not saying that we want water from a specific store. And the artificial intelligence start decide where we can buy, where we can go for something. That means that not every customer will be human. That is something that we need to think about it also in an oil and gas perspective, also in a corporate way. Be efficiency, but invest. This means that we need to do more with less, but also we need to invest, we need to innovate, and we need to be efficiency. And important, if it's not in the scoreboard, it didn't happen. That means that all the time we need to show value for this. Contribute to earning, impacting the core mission. That means that for one part, this is what I call the B model part. With one part, we need to maintain the day-by-day operations, but also we need to think how we are going to reinvent the business. If we see the example of Kodak, Blockbuster, the cabs, for example, with Uber, Airbnb, we have some examples of that one. That means that we need to rethink the core business mission. But this is more R&D. In what role we will have these catalyzers? And we need to deliver revenue, but also we need to deliver value. That is, I think, the modal part on the ambiguity that we are talking about. If you can pass, Armando, to the next slide. You can go to the... Yes, here, thank you. If we see from 2009, that is the beginning, of startups, what we see, and if you see in this graphic, that from 2014, 2017, we have a lot of startups coming through the market. That means that the way of working, the way of thinking of an organization that could be oil and gas, banking, retailing, or any vertical business that we can think about it, is reshaping. We have a new normal that we need to think about. And if you see at the right of the slide, it's a concentration of startups, that this is a graphic of unicorns. That means that it's all companies that begin like a startup, but with 1 billion valuation over 1 year. That means that if you see the velocity of the war, the ambiguity of the war, the complexity is going up. Please, can you pass through? What means that before, and this is an example that is funny, but when we think, for example, in banking, we have a huge banks that all the time start buying startups. But right now, what happened is that we have a lot of startups in place that is killing this big fish in parallel. That means that we need to think about it. And when we think in digital transformation, yeah, you can pass through, Armando. Sorry about that. We need to think in 2 dimensions. One dimension is go digital, and one dimension is be digital. When we think in go digital, and we cannot think in digital transformation in an organization without thinking in these 2 dimensions. Go digital, we can buy technologies, we can buy infrastructure, we can buy digital platforms. But the be digital is so important because it's the cultural change. It's a digital mindset. It's a new ways of working, governance, cultural transformation, and a huge change management. The organizations that are working just in one dimension, that is go digital, they are doing what we call the fly chicken. You know, they seem like they are going to doing digital transformation, but they are not. If you can click 2 times, but what we can see in this graphic, that also we need to work in the be digital dimension to have an exponential organization in place. And this is important because the be digital part is just not IT management. The go digital, yes. If Armando, you can do it, I think 2 clicks. Yes, thank you. And when we think in an exponential organization, we are thinking in organizations that work in the go digital part, but also work in the be digital dimension. This is maybe is simple to present in a PowerPoint, in a webinar, but it's the hardest things to do in a digital transformation in an organization, because sometimes need to be top down from the organization, but also is a new way of working. It's a cultural transformation for an organization. Armando, can you change the slide, please? Pass through. When we think in digital transformation in Petrobras, okay, what we want is to accelerate the add value part through digital transformation and innovation. And when we think in the go digital in my organization, in my directory, what we have is the go digital part, that is the CIO, the IT part with information technology. But we want the technology platforms that are boosting digital evolution. That means that we have a legacy, but also we need to have this bimodal way of working. That in one part we need to take care of the day-by-day operation, but in the other side we need to change all the legacies that we have in place to have this boosting platform to go to the digital evolution. For the be digital part, what we have is the digital transformation area that we are focusing to implement agile at scale, design thinking at scale. We are reshaping process. That is very important. We cannot think in digital transformation or in digitalization using or implementing the same process that we have in place from what we call the analogic part of work. And of course, these 2 dimensions, go digital and be digital, create a dimension that we call the lean Petrobras. What means that we need to be we need to be lean in process. We need to be simple. We need to kill bureaucracy in the organization. Of course, focusing also to add value and to create efficiency. When we think in innovation, we have our R&D center that I will move forward to explain, but we want to innovation for value creation, just not innovate to doing innovation. We need to innovate for value creation. Time to market is important. And growing machine and business model. That means that when we are thinking in a product evolve, or we are thinking in a new way of drilling, or we are thinking how we can add value to a company, we need to understand what are the challenges of the company, what are the challenges that the company is taking from the market also, and we are living, I call in the beginning, the perfect storm. You know, the market is going down, the brain is going down, and we have the pandemic. And what we have all this alchemy of technology in order to create value. And of course, the 5th pillar is protection. I mean, information and cybersecurity. If we are going to this accelerate path to innovation, what we need is an information security area like innovation enable. That means that we cannot block innovation because cybersecurity. That I think is the key message. Armando, if you can pass through the next slide, please. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And when we think in digital transformation, we are thinking in a digital ecosystem. That means that we need to take care or work with different technologies. And for example, I put some examples here to do more to visualize, but we have blockchain, we have augmented reality for safety and efficiency. We have digital twin, for example, for our refineries, in order to be more efficiency and start simulating the reality, the real core business to a digital scenario to do more efficiency adjust or working. Asset management is something that we need. We are putting a lot of technology there. High performance computing, because if we want digital twin, we want to understand, or we want to have the digital twin of the ground. We need to have high performance computing in order to work for, and also digital refinery. That means that we need to just not connect, or we have a scenario to do a simulation, but also use artificial intelligence to help us to connect the digital part of the twin to the analogic part. And we have logistic also. We have a program that we call Logistic 4.0 that is in order to do a better job in logistic, more efficiency, more accuracy in what we are expecting from logistic. And we have two huge programs that we call X100, and Pro 1000 that I will explain in the next slide. But when we think in digital ecosystem, what we are pushing very hard is to understand what is the ecosystem, the alchemy of technology in order to add value. And I think the market has all the technologies that we need in order to add value. We don't need to invent technology. When we think, for example, in Uber or Waze that are companies or products that we use, they didn't invent technology. They did an alchemy of technology in order to solve a problem, to get a need of a customer, or in this case, a company. Can you pass through, please? Okay, when we think in high performance computing, for example, what we are doing in Petrobras, we are increasing 10 times our capacity from 2019 to 2020 in order to think how with the geology, how we are going to do simulations, how we are working to do in focus to do a time decrease analysis by 35%. In some cases, we find out that we can reduce in 50%. But for that, we have the digital twin of stationary production units. We have Buzios field nodes survey with the largest seismic camping in the world. That means that we have a lot of data that need to be processed in order to understand the fields, in order to have the digital twin of the rocks. That is the example that I'm putting in the right. That means that we don't think to have just the digital twin of a refinery, but also we need to have the digital twin of the rocks in order to understand we are going to drill, how we are going to reduce time from the discovery to the first oil. If you can pass through the next slide, please.
Sure.
And we have two huge programs in the company. That one is X100. That means that 100% discovery chance factor, no exploratory wells. That means that this program at the end, what it means that when we drill, we are going to have oil. That means that we don't want dry drilling. That is 100% discovery chance. For that, we need to have transform data to information in the high performance computing mode in order to have a better vision of what is in the ground. And Prod 1000, is from the first oil after the discovery, we want to have 1,000 days. Today, we are taking 3,000 days from the discovery to get the first oil. That means that we need to reduce almost 33%, 66% of the time from the discovery to the first oil. That is a huge challenge, just not only in information, but how we manage the projects that we are running. This is just for exploration part. Of course, that we have the corporate areas like HR, finance, and other areas, even IT, that we are transforming in this digital transformation journey that we are running. Can you pass through, please? And we have our R&D area that is just to everybody knows that is part of our innovation and of course the digital transformation, that what we call the concept is lab of the labs, that is almost 300,000 square meters, 147 labs, 8,000 equipments, a lot of people with a lot of knowledge. We have postdocs, PhDs, masters that help us with knowledge to accelerate innovation and digital transformation in the company. And we have the largest R&D center in Latin America. If you can pass, please. And what we are creating also in our R&D is one more building ecosystem that we call the corporate lab. That is a innovation lab focusing in the corporate areas, that will have that data access, platform in order to do testing, co-working areas, a connection with a lot of startups, connection with partners, with partners that help us to accelerate this journey. That means that what we are doing in Petrobras is a huge transformation in this digital transformation. But I repeat, it's just not technology. It's a way of working. It's a way of thinking. It's a cultural change in order to accelerate this part in these two dimensions, in the Go digital part, but also in the Be digital part, and has to be these two dimensions working in parallel if we want to, accelerate this digital transformation with alchemy, doing alchemy with all the technologies that we have in place. And of course, if you can pass through, please. all this digital transformation need to be aligned with our sustainability commitments. I won't read here because I have, I think I push a lot of the time, but we have 10 sustainability commitments that also are aligned with all the innovation and the digital transformation that we are doing in Petrobras. And in summary, the measures here is when we think in digital transformation, we are doing a lot of things. Because the time I will show some part of here, but it's a lot of to do with cultural change, with new way of working. But my experience from other companies and of course in Petrobras, that the people is very open-minded in order to help and to receive this digital transformation way of work. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Oh, sorry, I was mute. A message that you gave us to be digital instead of go digital only. It's very strong message, no?
Just not to be digital. We need to work at the same time in the two dimensions. Because sometimes I spoke. I'm running in the market. I hear some professionals say, no, digital transformation is an IT problem. It's just not technology in the way that we are doing digital transformation in a company. Even in a huge companies like Petrobras, for example, we need to think in both way of working. It's like a bimodal way of working.
Excellent, excellent. Several questions are coming, but there is one very specifically that I would like to mention for you now. The slides will be available for the audience, or it's internal and private?
The slide, sorry, what's the question to me?
Are available for the audience, or?
Yes.
Okay.
We can publish.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Ken, please, what are the key elements, may I emphasize the most important ones, to increase business efficiency in terms of oil and gas using digital technologies, please?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation today. My message is that successful industries have successful ecosystems, and now is the time for the digital ecosystem to help reshape and reform oil and gas, and to capitalize on that opportunity. My first digital project was with a bus company working for an oil company. The oil company informed the bus company that their service was stuck in the Stone Age. And unless the bus company fixed the service, the contract would not be renewed. And this was a crisis for the bus company. My job was to help the CEO reimagine this business. And we decided to make the bus an extension of the oil company's business, rather than just a service that they simply purchased. And so we reimagined the bus as a kind of mobile office on wheels. To do this, we installed Wi-Fi, GPS on each of the buses. We deployed a new enterprise system to eliminate all the manual paperwork. And we invested in some clever analytics to help optimize driver shifts, pickup routes, and bus utilization. The day we turned the system on, we gathered around a big monitor with the CEO, and we watched one of the buses try to drive through a coffee drive-through shop, and he ended up backing his bus into a light pole. So the CEO was very happy to see the business in operation, but very unhappy to see the safety violation. The improvements were much more than we could have ever hoped for. We dramatically reduced the number of routes and simultaneously improved the pickup times for the drivers. This reduced fuel usage, which created a carbon saving. And we also prolonged the brake pads on the buses because there was less stop and start. This reduced maintenance costs. And safety went way up. We even freed up a number of buses, allowing the company to take on other contracts. And the next year, at the time of renewal, the oil company declared the bus company to be light years ahead, and they happily renewed the contract. And so a successful oil and gas industry has a successful ecosystem, including buses. And very few industries and even fewer companies can be successful by working entirely on their own. In this case, a traditional services company used this crisis, much like the one we're in now, to embrace digital technologies with their business partners to transform themselves and their slice of the industry, and they secured for themselves a prosperous future. Today, though, the oil and gas industry is in a struggle to survive, let alone be successful. To quote a movie title from Hollywood, this is a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad year. Global GDP will be in recession and will be down 3.3%, or as much as $9 trillion, according to the International Monetary Fund. The G20 group has poured over $5 trillion in economic stimulus to sustain their economies during this lockdown. The IEA forecasts daily oil demand will be down this entire year by 9.3 million barrels per day, over 10%. The market is meanwhile flooded with oil, and with some 1.6 billion barrels of oil beyond consumption, all gone into storage. Meanwhile, the price of oil has fallen 86% since January, from $70 down to as low as $9 a barrel. Capital spending will be down 20 to 30%. Canada alone has cut $4.4 billion in capital spending as of last week. Standard & Poor's reports that 95% of US oil companies are now struggling with their credit ratios. They're now under distress. Bankruptcies are on the rise. Yet another one announced yesterday with Diamond Offshore Drilling, all because of looming refinancing needs. And the long-term structural issues of decarbonization and environmental activism have not gone away. Oh, and we're going through a pandemic. Did I mention that? And so it's starting to make sense to work together, to collaborate, to get out of this mess. I like to use real data. Here's a photo of a screenshot from a service called Marine Traffic. And it shows the crude oil tankers all parked off the shore of Long Beach, California. Each one of the red dots on the screen is a crude carrier. And as you can see, they're not moving. Now, crude carriers generally only make money when they're sailing. And when they're not moving, it means they're being turned into storage. And you can get the same screenshot on ports in the Gulf of Mexico, Singapore, the Persian Gulf, parts of Canada, everywhere. So anyone working in the industry today is suffering. Even governments dependent on royalties from oil and gas are struggling. And the turnaround is far from certain. The oil and gas industry cannot grow its way out of this problem. It has no option but to capture all possible cost and productivity improvements just to survive. And there will therefore be many shifts in behavior in the industry that will give rise to new opportunity. Social distancing alone creates a kind of demand pull for innovation. And it turns out the ecosystem of suppliers and partners in industry are very important in this endeavor. One of the reasons the oil and gas industry has been successful is because it has nurtured this strong ecosystem. The ecosystem is global and ideas move very easily from place to place. Solution discovery is simple because of so many oil and gas trade shows, conferences, and journals. And the oil and gas industry is highly dependent on its ecosystem for innovation. A survey by Professor Robert Perrins shows just how much. Services companies account for the vast majority of innovation in the sector. The rest of innovation comes from copying other oil companies. You can see the formula. Service company develops an innovation, deploys it, and then it gets copied. And that's why oil and gas is generally called a fast follower industry. Now, the industry needs its ecosystem now more than ever, which should be very good news for suppliers to the industry. But here's the rub. Most of the ecosystem in oil and gas has been oriented to the problem of getting more product out of the ground. But we don't need to find and produce more oil when we already have too much. So the industry needs to capture cost and productivity savings as fast as possible. McKinsey published a study that shows that oil and gas is the slowest industry in adopting innovation. There are many reasons for this. Operations are 24/7, which leaves no time for change. Most of oil and gas infrastructure is brownfield and predates things like digital. Oil and gas assets are energized and pressurized, which leads to a very strict management of change process. So an unsuccessful industry and an unsuccessful ecosystem are not a good combination. Both can fail during the downturn, and they can be very poorly positioned for the eventual upturn. And most importantly, young people won't want to join the industry. So 2020 could turn out to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad year for the ecosystem. But of course, it doesn't have to be this way. What the industry needs to do, and you can see this in what's happening with Petrobras, is work with the digital ecosystem to go after cost and productivity savings that normally get pushed to the side during regular times. And it needs to work with the ecosystem to speed up its ability to adopt change. The prize is very compelling. First, the IEA estimates that digital tools applied to the costs of production alone would reduce costs by 20% or more. And second, digital tools applied to the work of wells, workers, facilities, services, turnarounds, you name it, improves productivity by 20%. That's a combined swing of 40% in fortune. And in the process, digital creates lots of new jobs by supporting all of these new tools, rethinking work. Calgary alone is already reporting hundreds of unfilled jobs in data science areas. I was on a webinar just last week, and the venture capitalists from Denver noted that there was over $1.5 trillion in venture funds available for the energy technologies of the future. They're just waiting for the right opportunity. So by working with the ecosystem to pull in new innovations and digital players alongside more traditional players, I'm confident the industry will capture these benefits from digital. I have personally seen it from the front seat of my bus client. Here are 3 ideas that work. First, oil and gas companies and their suppliers should plug into the new technology incubators and accelerators that have sprung up in recent years. That's where the young entrepreneurs can be found and where the investors in technology hang out. Second, I would specifically replicate the concept behind COSIA, the Canadian Oil Sands Innovation Alliance. It was initially set up to pool research in water, but a fine structure nonetheless to collaborate on industry-level digital topics, such as AI, 5G, cybersecurity, and blockchain. And finally, I would also explore another important industry collaboration in the US, the Onshore Offshore Consortium, or OOC, which was set up to explore how blockchain could transform the industry. They've kicked off a number of really important trials in areas like water management, royalties, and engineering content access. This structure could be set up anywhere. Speeding up adoption, though, is the hard part. I drew this little cartoon for my weekly article series, and I'm not sure if it's fully clear on the screen, but it's engineer saying the little red project is our agile one. Big oil sometimes smothers its digital efforts because of its culture. So speeding up is the hard problem. Here's some ideas that other companies have prosecuted with some success. Some have set up their own investment funds or venture arms to target investments in digital innovation. These funds attract digital entrepreneurship and can help overcome the scale problem that exists, big oil companies being so much larger than small technology companies. Another option is for the small technology companies to work with a large incumbent who is already at scale. Big technology companies already know how to scale solutions to satisfy the needs of big oil. They provide trust to the market that the solution will work in all situations and specifically under pressure. Industry leaders who are serious about scaling up will put in place their own internal digital accelerators. Petrobras has already done this, as Nicholas has set out. Dedicated corporate teams can handle things like how to scale up, how to overcome the cultural problems of change resistance, how to figure out deployment pathways, and how to measure value. Tech firms, I would counsel, need to rethink their overall approach to drive adoption fast. Being software only and having no hardware impact is one of the keys to avoid the very slow and very challenging management of change process. And of course, agreeing carefully what the decision criteria are for scaling up in advance and measuring that baseline performance will help eliminate perpetual pilot projects, one of the industry's real challenges. And finally, there should be very clear value created for your initial customer that's only available if the pilot grows. This could be additional features that are available through fleet learning, new pricing, or both. At this stage of the industry lifecycle, adding more production isn't helpful, but the prospects of cost and productivity savings from digital are not only attractive, they're now downright mandatory. Successful industries have successful ecosystems. The digital ecosystem has a lot to offer, and now is the time to step up to shape and reform the oil and gas industry.
Thank you, Mr. Ken. It's a very strong message you gave us in terms of digital is changing the opportunities for a new oil and gas industry. Very clear. It's okay. Does not hear us. Something is wrong with my phone. Can you hear me? No.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, the point is a very good point you make for us. Digital is changing the opportunities for a new oil and gas industry, ecosystems and digital. Thank you very much for your initial words.
I'm sorry. I'm also very glad to hear Jeffrey because it's very aligned with what I presented before, but we didn't talk before. That means that it's a checkpoint for me that we are like Petrobras, we are in a good path.
Yeah, I agree completely. Normally I speak very strongly about the distinction between doing digital, which is easy, and being digital, which is extremely hard. And so I share that message very strongly. In my book, I concentrate extensively on that problem.
Excellent. Let's go to the Q&A section. I have one question that I was writing here while these two guys were in the keynote speaking. The first one is the following. How local companies, I mean, local Brazilian or Canadian companies can see partnerships involving companies from foreign countries? I mean, is it simple and easy to put companies from different countries together? Both of you keynote speakers.
Well, I can answer if you want. We have a lot of partnership with different companies from outside, of course, of Brazil. We have partnership with Total, with Equinor, with different companies and also universities. A lot of universities, of course, from Brazil, but also outside Brazil, in order to accelerate or in order to help us each other with this digital transformation and in another fronts also. And partnership, I think, is easy when you have the same purpose. And what we try to do in Petrobras is, of course, to select partners with the same way of purpose that we need to work. If we like I explained in my presentation, in order to add value, we need to have a need. We need to have a purpose. If the company that we are going to do a partnership, we converge, we go both in the same direction. I think the partnership will be healthy in some ways. Of course, also is very healthy to work with different cultures, with different way of thinking, even with the same target, because we can go in the same direction, but also the different point of view is, I think, what add a lot of value in a partnership, in an organization. But we need to be open to hear both sides, and to be open also to change if is the case.
Thank you. There's a question for Mr. Ken. Can you comment on how big oil is sharing data to enable collaboration?
So the oil and gas industry generally does not share its data easily. And the reason for this relates back almost to the stock price formula. The value of an oil company is 70% of the value is related to just two variables: the price of oil and the amount of oil you presume to own or have underground. And as Nicholas has set out, understanding the geology of the rocks and not drilling dry wells is such a critical question. That data, therefore, is very, very sensitive. And so the industry, for the most part, has been very reluctant to share its subsurface data for the purposes of creating value through shared information. And that cultural norm is part of the cultural change process that the industry has to go through, is to unlock that way of thinking that data is a scarcity, that it should be something that is protected and secure and confidential. The digital industry works in the other way. It sees data as abundant and it wants to be free. That's why it's so easily copied. And so we have a mindset to kind of go through in order for the real value of oil and gas data assets to be unlocked.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. For Mr. Simon, there are two questions that are very similar. What is the major challenge for the digital transformation, and which is the biggest challenge for Petrobras digital transformation? Please.
Well, I think the digital transformation in a company, that means for Petrobras. We have two things. First is to how we are going to improve our legacy systems, how we are going to use our data or transform data and in information, but also in this change management of a cultural change. We are working in Petrobras with a lot of generation of people. That means that people that born in an analogic world and they need to go to the digital world, but also people that are digital and they are prepared. The pillar of be digital is very strong. And I think first is communication, understand what is our purpose, our target, our mission, that the show also in practice that work differently is good. You know, sometimes people is scared of change, but this happens in all organizations, just not only in Petrobras. And an important thing is that we need to add value, and it's not technology by technology itself. All this, of course, with this pandemic, I think one of the positive things of this, this very sad pandemic, is that we are going to do in 3 months, or we are going to change, or we are changing the cultural part, the way of working in 3 months, what maybe in a normal situation will take between 3 and 5 years. So that means that all this coronavirus pandemic situation is accelerating the digital transformation in a way that the people need to try to work differently, because if not, we cannot operate a company. If I, for example, go to the board and say that in 1 week we are going to put 30 or 20,000 people working in home office, maybe the board tell me, "Oh, are you crazy or something?" You know. And this is, I think, is the key. Is the people in this kind of situation is in a position that is a new normal position. Is a new way of working. People that didn't use application to buy food, to delivery from the supermarket or wherever, they start to use it because they don't have another option. I think for companies and oil and gas, and Jeffrey say very nicely, we need to. I think we have the resource, we have the people, we have very intelligent people, very, very professional people, and we need to put all this together to run with this digital transformation. And I think the pandemic situation is accelerating that one. Is the, I would say, the positive side of this very sad situation. But it's a huge challenge. You know, we are speaking in a company, a huge company with a lot of people, a lot of way of thinking. That is why I told in my presentation that the be digital part is the challenge one. The go digital we can buy in the market. The be digital is people, cultural change, people change, way of thinking.
Thank you. There's a question for Geoffrey Kent. How do a small company sell an innovative product or service to oil and gas company? If the innovation does not reach the right person, it may not be perceived as value.
So I think that's the wrong question. The right question should be, how do I choose the best oil and gas company and the most receptive company to my innovation? Because if you think about the companies that recognize that there is ample supply of innovation, but there is a shortage of demand, I don't believe it is the role of a small technology company to try to stimulate demand. It is far too hard to do that. The right answer, in my mind, is to identify those organizations that already recognize that the opportunity or the potential for the technology to enhance their business is already there. In other words, it's more receptive. It's like being a farmer. You don't plant seeds on solid rock. You look for fertile soil, and then you put the seeds have a much stronger chance of growing. I would concentrate my energies first on picking companies likely to be more receptive to your ideas, and not just how do I find the right person. Your assumption that every company will recognize your value is not a correct assumption.
Excellent. I have a question that probably both would like to answer. How the resilience plans for today that are impacting the most expensive digital transformation projects, such as updating technology platforms. I understand that they mean this pandemic time, the resilience plans. How can digital help the situation nowadays?
Well, I can answer if you want. I don't know if Jeffrey want to add something, but I think the resilient plans accelerate the digital transformation, but of course with a huge portfolio management. You know, what we need to understand is that every dollar or reais or whatever that we invest, we need to have a huge return. That means that the all digital transformation that plans that we are doing, we are accelerating. For example, with this pandemic, I implement some platforms in November of last year that in the process of change management, when you implement a technology platform, you don't implement all the platform. You are, how to say, slowly implementing some functionalities because you need to train people, you need to do that one. With this case of the pandemic, I need to take all the parking lot platform that was waiting to implement, just to put it in place in order to accelerate this digital transformation. That means that for me, this situation, the resilience plans, is helping to be more efficiency. And all the plans need to be accelerated. This is my personal way of thinking, and also is what we are doing in Petrobras. We are accelerating the digital transformation, but just with a huge portfolio management that we guarantee that we can add value from the project that we are going to put in place.
Geoffrey.
Two thoughts. One is that the leading companies who are working with digital recognize that the scale of the value is much greater than typical. And so the agenda should be to aim for large changes in productivity and value. There are two laws that govern the world of digital which have little effect on oil and gas. And these are not science laws, they're more empirical laws. So the empirical law number one is Moore's law, which is every 18 months, the density of transistors doubles. But carried out to in business terms, it means the capability of my digital solution will be double what it is today, which is why you delay implementing some functionality to the future, because it will be better. And the second is that the cost will be cut in half over 18 months. That's rule number one. Most oil and gas companies do not plan their business with that as in mind, that somehow my business will be twice as capable and half the cost in 18 months. We don't think that way. Digital companies do, but oil companies do not. The second rule is that called Robert Metcalfe's law, which is the law of network value, which is n squared. The value of a network is a function of n squared, number of nodes squared. So the more you connect up, create pathways to connect people, services, data, databases, devices, the value goes up. Oil and gas does not think that way. We don't connect wells to each other. We connect wells to a SCADA system, and then we supervise it from the SCADA system. What we should be thinking about is how do we connect wells to wells so that the wells can somehow be mutually supportive and sharing information and improving their performance together. We don't think that way. So if oil and gas is to survive and succeed, it needs to start thinking about how does it embrace these laws and these rules. And to combine the two of them together, Moore's law plus Metcalfe's law, means that the targets for improvement need to be much higher than they currently are today. not 5% improvements, but 50% improvements.
Excellent. We have 1 hour and 10 minutes, so it's a long time. We have a lot of questions. Probably we'll select them or capture them and send to both speakers to see how can they answer. Mm-hmm. Mr. Ken, please, your slides are available for the audience?
Yes, my slides will be made available. I'm not how we will do that, but like Nicholas, we'll make them available.
Yeah, you can send a selected ones via PDF for me. You can arrange to put on the audience available.
For sure. The text of what I relayed also, I have it's written down as an article, and I've published the article on my blog site. So Excellent. If anybody wants to read the text and see the message, they can find it on my website.
Fantastic. Mr. Ken is offering 3 books. He is author of Beats, Bytes, and Barrels for the audience. So the Consulate in Rio and PUC-Rio will make a draw to select the 3 lucky winners. And personally, we'll contact people, the winners, the lucky ones, by mail to send or to arrange to deliver for them. I would like to open for the final remarks if Gustavo, Evelyn, Nicholas, and Geoffrey, if you wanted to say something very short time. Please.
I'll offer just one my key message to this group, this audience. Successful industries have successful ecosystems, and now is the time for the digital ecosystem to use its capabilities to help the oil industry work its way through this current crisis set. Thank you.
Nicholas, something to finalize?
Yes, just to add to what the Geoffrey said, that we need to do all this transformation through people. You know, we are just not machines. That means the digital transformation has to be made through people, with a cultural change in a company. But just technology, just platforms, just how to say, the hardware part won't work in any company, even of course in Petrobras. I also work in financial, I work in retail, I work in consumer goods. And what I can tell you that even the difference of the business, the problems are the same. You know, we just change the address for that. That means that when we think in digital transformation, innovation, of course, we have the ecosystems, but the ecosystems is what we call in retail, they call the customer-centric or the product-centric or the business-centric or whatever you want to call it. We cannot build an ecosystem without alignment with the core business, with what we really want, of course, with the people or through the people that is in the company. And we need to think how we balance these both sides, technology and people. If not, we are not going to succeed.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you very much. Gustavo, a few words, and Evelyn, a few words after.
My contribution will be Geoffrey called ecosystems, Nicholas people. I would like to reaffirm that collaboration and experimentation are really important to identify your pathway to contribute to the sector and to contribute to both countries' relationships. Thank you very much, Evelyn.
Professor Cavagna, I just want to reiterate my message that I passed on at the beginning, that if there are any Canadian companies looking into the Brazilian market or Brazilian companies looking for innovative solutions that we have in Canada, so we have Najini Lopez, who's in our consulate in Rio, and Sheila Santos. So you can get in touch with them through our website or LinkedIn, or write to the organizers, and we can facilitate that link. So they are there to help companies, and it's all free.
Good, excellent. So let's take over to Najini and Sheila for a very few words.
Cavanha, thank you, PUC, ECOA, thank you, our speakers. Just wanted to thank everybody. I'm Nadine Lopez. I am the Trade Commissioner responsible for the oil and gas sector in Brazil. Thank you for your audience. Stay tuned to the next events. Bye, thanks.
Thank you, Nadine. Sheila, please. You are in São Paulo. You are mute. You are mute. You are mute.
Okay, now you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me congratulate the speakers. Thanks a lot. It was a great presentation. My name is Sheila. I also work for the government of Canada. I'm in charge of the ICT file here in Brazil. I'm really glad with the great turnout of this event. The good news is that this is just the first webinar out of 10 that we are organizing this year. So every 2 months, you will have the chance to learn about digital transformation in the oil and gas industry. We will make sure that you will all receive the invitations to the second edition of this event, which is going to happen in June. And let me please take advantage of this webinar to make a second invitation for you. The government of Canada is also promoting another virtual mission, another virtual initiative, which is a virtual mission to Canada to take part of a great event, great technology event called Collision. So the companies attending the technology event virtually, they will also be able to join the meetings, the B2B meetings that we organize between Brazilian and Canadian companies. So I believe that in the next slide, you will see our emails, and you will be able to contact us if you are interested, either me or Nadine. So thanks a lot for your participation today.
Thank you, Sheila. We appreciate the presence of all participants, sponsors, speakers, supporters. Thank you. Have a good day and see you in the next event. Thank you. Goodbye.